I'm excited to share with you the first episode of my interview with Jenny Ottaway. Jenny hails all the way from Sydney, Australia. She is a relationship coach, and her business is the Foundation of You. We were enjoying our conversation so much, I didn't realize we'd gone over my usual interview time, and I didn't want to leave any of the conversation on the cutting room floor, so I broke it into 2 episodes. In this first episode, we explore how Jenny learned to take care of things on her own after her divorce, and we also spend time talking about how she created a new relationship with her teenage daughters as a single mom. So let's get started.
Yeah, I think that's a nice segue to, how we're living our lives now, in this midlife.
I know.
Which I'm like, me? Midlife?
Right, no. Right. That's what everybody says. They go, well, it kind of caught me by surprise. And it's like, yeah, I don't blame you. But the thing about midlife is there's no demarcation, right? There's, in the States, you turn 16, you get a driver's license. You turn 18, you get to vote. You turn 21, you get to drink. There's these markers for things. But midlife just kind of slides its way in there.
Yeah. And I also think it has to do with mindset. I've met a lot of older 30-year-olds than, people who are in my age bracket. And, sometimes it's confronting from that perspective, or people kind of look at you and go, oh, well, you're older. And I'm like, am I really?
What does that mean?
Right. But that's from looks. Then, sometimes if I'm engaging with, people and talking to them, they'll go, oh, you're so young because of how I act, how I behave, because, life is to live with passion and energy and fun and, that gratitude that I think maybe comes with age, the wisdom and the gratitude.
Because, when you're young, as they say, you think you're going to live forever, right? You have that sense of immortality. And as you grow into your middle years, you realize that I don't have it forever and I really will leave this earth one day. And what does that mean to me? Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that kind of was how I looked at my life. I'd been married for 26 years and I wasn't happy, and I could see the end. And I could also see where I was at that point and thought, well, if I want to live my best life, then the time is now. And I, and it's not like I just knew that I wasn't fulfilling the dream that I had within myself. And I wanted to give myself the gift of that opportunity. And it's been hard and an awful road where everybody around me has been hurt. And, based on decisions that I have made or, they have made. I mean, it's a mutual decision, of course, when you enter a relationship or a long-term marriage. But, and it wasn't one, I guess I took it, Joanne, with everything that I do in life, it's always, it's going to be great. Oh my God, it's going to be fantastic. And, I don't actually, I leap
that
before
optimism.
I leap before I look. I hadn't thought through anything, I just kind of thought, well, I have to do this and this is what it's going to look like and it's going to be amazing. And then of course the realities of life hit, and it's like, oh, the banks won't lend a single income person all that money. Okay,
it's like, okay, but yes, those realities do come, they hit you at some point, but just think about it. If you thought about all of those things, you'd probably still be married. If you thought about obstacles and how that wasn't going to work out and all this kind of stuff, you would just said, forget it. I'll just make the best of what I got.
Yes. And I think there's that leap of blind faith that we do, though, some of us do, and everybody's circumstances are different. And I was lucky that I was, in a space where I wanted to jump, and I felt like, well, I could wait until, for example, my girls finished high school, but that was another 5 years, and I didn't know, or 4 years, and I didn't know if I'd still be around. Every day we wake up and it's like, oh, I'm so grateful, you know,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know. So
And
I
you think
wanted
about,
to feel that.
well, and you think, you know, it's not just about you and your spouse. You know, your children are touched by what's going on in your relationship. And so the question you ask also is, do I want my girls to have to experience this for another 4 years? You know, my unhappiness,
Yeah,
because it'll show through, right? Yeah.
absolutely. And I think, you know, they have been, you know, we've been through a long sort of road, to paint a
Mm.
picture, you know, a long road
Mhm.
together. And I think the thing that has helped me is to be honest with them on,
Mhm.
you know, what happened and where I see the future going.
Mhm.
And they may not understand that now because they're still developing themselves and they're still trying to find out who they are. So,
Mhm.
you know, my needs aren't necessarily important to them. You know, they're like,
That is the
well, what
truth of
about
it.
us?
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're young.
yeah. And so they don't really see it that way. And they see a lot of their friends. It's
Mm.
funny, we always see what other people have, not what we have. And so they see a lot of their friends and their friends' parents investing a lot of time and energy into the kids, you know, and it's all
Mm.
about the kids. And
Mhm. Mhm.
that's probably reflected, I see it too, on people's Facebook posts where,
Yep.
you know, it's all about the kids
Yep.
and, you know, their successes, which I think, of course, you know, and that's a big part of parenting. But I also think a big part of parenting is to be the best parent. We need to know ourselves
Mhm.
and grow ourselves at the same time. And if we're in a, you know, in a relationship where we're not growing, then um you know, what's our purpose?
Mhm.
Yes, our purpose is to raise beautiful and developed and you know, children who are going to, you know, live their life with passion and be their best selves. But I think our obligation is also to ourselves to model that.
Exactly. You do have to model that because, you know, they're going to pick it all up by osmosis. And
Mm,
if they know that you're not happy, if they can sense that you're not, you know, you're searching and that things aren't right for you, then it's going to impact how they think of themselves, you know, how they think they should be in the world. Right.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think that they're looking, when they look at you know, their life and coming back from the conference that we were at recently, you know, a lot of people have gone through huge trauma and
Mm-hmm.
huge life defining moments.
Mm-hmm.
And whilst when we think about it, we go, oh, that was really awful what happened at the time. But what it allowed us to do and me to do, you know, it allows us then to reflect, to, you know, you go to that dark place and but out of that dark place comes the light.
Yeah.
And that ability to maybe have more self-awareness, or
Mm-hmm.
to look around myself and go, wow, you know, there are other possibilities and there are other ways to live my life, or, you know, that, but it's not being totally selfish. You know, it's
No,
also
it's
being
not.
aware. It's being aware of everyone around me, and but by being a little bit selfish allows me to then be a better mom or better mom.
Yeah, you know, so often women are made to feel that any attention they give themselves, anything that's not totally focused on their family and their children or their work,
Mhm.
is about being selfish, and that is a big lie. That's just
Yes.
all there is to it.
Yes.
That's just a
Yeah.
friggin' story that we get fed so that
Mm.
we do all the nice little things we're supposed to for everybody else.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's in, it's in their best interest for us to buy into that story.
Of course. Exactly.
But
Right.
the
You
truth
know?
is, you know, you can't give them your best when you are not at your best. And that requires you to continue to grow, as you
Mm.
said, just like your family, just like your children and your husband and the people around you. Someone was saying to me, you know, it's really quite amazing that everyone expects us to grow and develop from birth till the time we're about, I don't know, maybe 25 or so. And then all of a sudden that's it. We're done. We're not supposed to be learning anymore. We're not supposed to be growing anymore. We're just supposed to like sail on down, fulfilling our obligations and doing all that. And it's like, that's a bunch of baloney, right?
Yeah. And it's funny, people ask you when you're growing up, what do you want to be when you grow up? What, it's like this kind of pinnacle that we reach. And yet, there are many, I saw this beautiful movie on the way back, and it showed the birth of a butterfly, and it said that when you've got the chrysalis and it's still in its sort of growing phase, if you cut the chrysalis, if you cut the bag of its growth to make it easier for it, it falls out and it dies because it's not allowed to have that opportunity to grow. And then, if you let it grow and shape itself, and then it makes its own way out of that, then, it's this beautiful butterfly. And I love that because, we often, we say that we reach that pinnacle when we're, what are you going to be when you grow up? Well, I'm still in that defining phase, and I've had some bumps along the way, but I am growing into that beautiful butterfly. And I've been that beautiful butterfly. We all have, where, we're just, there are many I think there are many iterations or many, opportunities for us to grow again.
Shapes and forms. Yeah. I've seen that discussion about the butterfly, and, the story kind of goes, oh, well, I saw this butterfly struggling to get out, and I felt badly for it, so I tried to help it, and I cracked the shell a little bit more. And what happens is it's the struggle that strengthens the butterfly, and it helps to move the fluid, because I think if you were to look at it, it's like there's a lot of fluid left in the body, and so the struggle to get out pumps that fluid out, and it fills up the wings, and it makes it so that it's ready to fly when it gets out. But if he doesn't have to do that, then that process doesn't happen, and they're weak and they can't survive.
Yeah. And it's a great analogy for life, because it today, in today's world, we all want it now. We want to have everything now. And what we learn, if we allow ourselves to learn that, is to go, well, actually, half the fun is the struggle. Half the fun is going to that place where it's like, oh my gosh, I never thought I could go there. And to really, as we know, with everything, and there's the light and then there's the shade, and if we don't ever experience the shade, then we can't appreciate the light.
Yeah, it's really true. I saw an article recently about here in the United States, we have a term called helicopter parents.
Yeah, we've got that too.
Okay. And then recently I heard somebody talk about lawnmower parents. I'm like, well, what does that mean? It's like, well, it's those parents that try to do everything they can to smooth the way. So, do you have the sport, curling in Australia? It's that, big marble stone, and you throw it down this lane, and there's a person who throws it. And then there are these sweepers, these two people that run along the ice, and they've got these brooms, and they're just like sweeping right in front of the stone to make it so that the stone sails easily down to the circle where it tries to knock out the other stones. But I always liken those sweepers to parents because that's what we think our job is. Maybe we're not a helicopter parent. We think we can pat ourselves on the back for that because we don't run, we don't intercede. There's a slight difference between being a helicopter parent and being a lawnmower parent in that, your job is to kind of behind the scenes, just smooth so that they don't have any hiccups or difficulties. But the thing is, they don't learn then how to handle those things. And the first time something happens that they don't know what to do with, they feel powerless. They are, they're scared. They don't know what to do. They don't have usually a very good outcome. And when you're 25 and that happens, that could be a real problem. If you're 12, it's probably not such a big thing.
Yes. Yeah. And I think, by giving ourselves, like, I think of how my life has evolved, and a lot of, I wouldn't say my parents were like that at all, but I think there were instances where they did things for me. And even in my marriage where, my ex-husband did everything around the finances. And one of the biggest joys that I got when I, after we had divorced, one of the biggest joys I got was I had a mortgage broker come and talk to me about getting a bank loan. And I never knew anything about how our bank loan worked before for our mortgage. I just let him do everything. And when this mortgage broker came out and he was like, okay, well, this is what the bank will be willing to lend you. And I was like, that's not enough. Here in Australia, we've got stamp duty, which is like a tax on the purchase of the property. And I was like, well, I hadn't actually taken into account the stamp duty component. So I was like, well, what you're saying, and he was like, that's the maximum they'll lend you as a single, parent earner or single woman earner. And I was like, okay, well, that's not enough. And I went out, Joanne, and I thought, well, I can do this myself. And I went out and I approached a couple of institutions. And here in Australia, it's very tough to get a loan at the moment because of this royal commission around banks giving too much money away to people who can't really qualify and can't afford it. And so I was mindful of that. But obviously I had the financials to back it up. And I applied to an institution and I got the amount, I had put it out to the universe and I got the amount that I needed to cover that stamp duty component. Now, as also the universe works, I got the bank loan, pre-approval, and I did it myself, which I guess is really where I was heading with that, is that, you think that you can't do something because somebody else has done it for so long, but the growth and the feeling of, wow, I did that comes when, not the mortgage broker. I kind of watched how he did the process, but then I was like, well, if you're saying that I can only get a certain amount, I know I must be able to, or at least let me try, and I think that's where the growth comes, is when I tried and then I was able to get just that little bit more. And then as life kind of happens, then my role at work was made redundant. and I'm, I didn't need to go down that path, but at least I was able to see that I could do that. And I think that's the gift that we give our children is, what, I'm not going to do that for you. I want you to learn the steps. I do want to give my children that sense of financial independence to them now. And it's so funny. You're ready. The student is willing when the student is willing and ready. If they're not ready to hear that, doesn't make any difference. And that's what I've learned, because I did this financial, your key to your financial success folder for each of my teenage daughters. And they both were like, I gave it to them for Christmas. I was so excited. I didn't give presents. I was like, I'm so excited. Here's a folder. And in that folder had, their savings accounts. It had their freaking flyer points. It had anything that can be considered as an asset, and then a folder, like a sleeve for pay slips, future pay slips and things. Anyway, I gave it to them and they were so underwhelmed and they were like, this is like school.
What is this, Mom? What am I supposed to do with this?
And like major eye rolls. And
like, this is my Christmas present?
Yes. And I was so excited because, it didn't involve, it was like, the value was priceless.
Right. And it was truly, but how old are your daughters now?
15 and 17. Yeah, they're 15 and 17. And And I learned a really important lesson. It's like kind of going back to that butterfly, you can cut them out of the chrysalis, but if they're not ready, then they don't, it's like, la, la, la. I just want to know how I can buy my next party dress, Mom.
Yeah, exactly.
But
it is a valuable asset, and it's a seed that you plant. They'll stick that away, and eventually they'll come back to it, and they'll go, what was that thing Mom gave us? Yeah, she said something about frequent flyer miles. You mean I could actually get a free trip if I could figure out my frequent flyer miles? Let me go look that up.
Exactly. And both of them do have, like, because I started back when they were little. I started their frequent flyer program with with one of the airlines, and I forgot all about it, but always used it whenever we travel back to the States, and I forgot all about it. And I was reviewing it just last week, because they could, again, they're not really thinking that, but they both could have a free flight somewhere, which is awesome, within Australia, not within, outside, but which is awesome for them, because particularly when, they're getting to that age of almost 18 and, wanting to have a little bit more freedom, and that will enable them, because what is financial security? It's freedom, and I think not only for us as women, going through that transition, the financial freedom that we, I try and I'm trying to forge for myself. It's important that I model that, or I help my kids. And that's been my biggest challenge, Joanne, is without appearing like I am such a miser, because I don't know if you find it there, but I've been doing a lot of selling off of my, just like things that things that I don't need. And so there's Facebook Marketplace, and I just use that as an opportunity to just get a little bit of extra cash, maybe for groceries that week, or even just to like go out and have coffee with somebody. Like, I don't do that a lot, because I'm trying to. I don't want to consume so much, like that. The saris that I bought when I was in India was a huge expense for me, because I don't spend a lot on myself these days. I'm trying to create habits for myself, which I am mindful of what I spend, and not that money is finite, because I want to have abundance, and I believe that when you give out, you'll get back. But also, I just want to, I don't want to consume so much anymore. And I want to teach that to my daughters as a life lesson. And that's without seeming like, oh, Mom, you're just, I don't want it to become a negative, which I think right now it's a negative in their mind, because they see all their friends with all these things. And I don't know, I'm constantly pulled, and it's, what do I feel here versus, that desire to please
and
your
to make
children
them happy, right? I mean, you don't want them to feel like they're less than, but yet you don't want it to be a competition with their friends. It's like, I remember when my daughters were younger, they're like 28 and 22 now. But when they were in high school, it was always a struggle to figure, okay, where is that line? I want them, we had some resources. We weren't rich by any means, but we had some. And so there were some things that I could afford to do for them. But you have to decide, okay, so where is that line? What, and how do you explain that we voluntarily put that line there, and we don't want to go across it for these reasons? It's not because we can't, but because we choose not to. And here are the reasons why we've made that. I've made that choice for you.
Yeah. And I think it's harder when, if I'm in a divorced situation, because then I've got my set of rules, I guess. And then my ex-husband has his set of rules. Right. And, as we know, the stories go, well, if Mom won't give it to me, Dad will. Right. And if Dad won't give it to me, Mom will, or whatever,
Worth a try anyway, they think.
Yeah. But the real I think the real growth for them comes when they've actually earned it themselves. And, you know, my nearly 18-year-old, at one point, she had 3 jobs. You know, she had a newspaper or advertising delivery, you know, pamphlet delivery. She was babysitting, and she was working at the local supermarket. So I was so proud of her for taking all of that on. She knew that she wanted to raise a certain amount of money, but not to spend it. So to put it away, and then to, you know, she's bought some, I helped her research some stocks, and by researching, by researching, I went out to my community and I said, my daughter wants to, you know, my community being a Facebook community. My daughter wants to invest in some shares. What do you think? And, you know, what, like, just a very, very informal poll, not putting responsibility on anybody, but, and then she was able to do that. And then now my second, you know, the 15-year-old, nearly 16, she's also getting more interested. So I think, like, for us, you know, the desire comes when it starts to, we see it as something like a necessity, or, you know, how do I, you know, how can I make my money work for me, you know, the whole compound interest thing. And in fact, you know, don't spend it, although it's so tempting. It's so tempting to spend. But that's the thing you just said, there's so many things. And as we know, you know, things aren't going to make us happy. It's going to be the experiences, and it's going to be that sense of pride that we feel when we've accomplished something that we didn't think we could accomplish. And so, it's a funny,
it's not a straight line by any means.
No. And, you know, I think I'm trying to figure out my own self and how I position myself for these next, let's say, 50 years. And then, but not only am I trying to position my own self and to feel my own self-worth and, you know, redefine who I am, but also I'm helping to shape my kids as well. And so it goes back to that selfishness versus selflessness. I'm not really, I'm not trying to be all things, all people, but I still have to learn how to honor myself, at the same time helping to develop these 2 young, you know, beautiful teenagers at the same time. And it's a struggle, you know, because then emotions come into it, and hormones, and, you know, I'm sitting next to a mom last night at my book club, and she's talking about, you know, sons. So her son, she doesn't really get the hormonal thing, although I know sons have hormones too, but
it's different ones.
It's different ones, right? So I think, and what it showed me, or what it tells me, is that we're all just doing the best we can.
That's right.
We make mistakes, but we hopefully learn from them and become more self-aware, that we don't keep repeating those patterns in those same mistakes. And by, you know, I think you hit it on the head with your series, is that you're, you know, you're out there and you're talking to people and you're helping share the stories of what are we all going through. And, you know, we're all going through very similar things.
Yeah, in a lot of ways we are. It's interesting, you know, because I'm looking for what those common threads are. And they are beginning to show themselves. You know, but going back to what you were saying about your, you know, this trying to work it out for yourself and at the same time work it out for your daughters. I think, you know, being able to model for them that there is struggle involved, right? That it's not like, you know, it's not like a TV sitcom where everything is resolved in 30 minutes. It's an ongoing thing, and that's normal. There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It doesn't mean that you're, you know, whatever story you want to stick on there. It just means that you're human, and that's the life is. We don't come with a manual that says, okay, when this happens, you do this. You know, you have to kind of figure it out. And I think when you do that, when you kind of lay that open for your daughters to see now that they're a little older, and you do it with love, you know, and compassion for yourself and for them, that's the best you can do, you know? So I think we forget that we can't give them the answer. We can just show them how the process works.
Yeah. And I think, I know, with the teenage girl, her thing is they want to break from their parents, or, they want to break that cord that connects mother and daughter. And it was interesting when we were in India, and I was sharing that with somebody, an Indian woman there, and she was like, wow, I don't experience that with my mother, and I never experienced that with my mother. And I wondered if it was a cultural thing that we in the West expect our kids to go through that, but then, in the East, maybe they don't. I don't know, I haven't done enough exploration of it, but I do know that here, and I've had a lot of people say, well, whatever they do in that disconnection, or when they try and break the cord, don't ever stop loving them. Don't ever stop reaching out. Keep the communication open, because I know the response when you get rejected, the first response is to go, well, yeah, painful. And well, okay, then I'll, if you don't want me to talk, if you don't want me to talk to you, I won't.
Right. I know. When my kids were teenagers, I don't know how many times I had to bite my tongue, because they hurt you, they poke you, they do all those things, and we're only human. And, depending on how evolved we are or are not, those little things just like come up on our tongue, and we're like, oh, if I say that, that's going to be just as hurtful to them. And that's not going to get me anywhere.
Yeah. And I know that I have learned from that, because, I think obviously it's our ego, and it's our response where I want to defend myself and go, well, no, it's not like that at all.
Yeah.
But the reality is that they see things in a different way to how we see things, given where we are in our points of life, and given where they are in their points of life. And they lack that experience of being able to look back throughout their life and go, when that happened for me and I responded in that way, how did that work out for me? It positive or negative. And then I was, now in my same experience, I'm able to go, okay, well, how did that work out for me? Whereas their point of reference is a lot smaller.
Yeah.
And I think for me, my biggest learning, going through all of this pain and upheaval, and the experiences that we've had and shared as a family unit, and then not as a family unit the last couple of years since the divorce happened. I think it's like it's a storm that you can't see through, but that the storm is going to get better at some point, and the sun will come out, and it will get and you will get through it. And I think that's the key to resilience, and to try and you give them that sense that, well, it looks like a storm right now, but there will be light, and we will get through this together, because
don't last forever.
Yeah. And I think particularly for teenage girls, and not that I like to say this, but menopausal women, because I'm like,
who was that?
Because I'm like,
I'm
like me, but I've been very lucky, but knock on wood, I've been very lucky and haven't had too bad of that sort of the symptoms. But still mix the hormones of a teenager and the hormones of an older menopausal woman, and they say it just goes right. But I think that but as we were saying before, it's all okay. It's normal, and even if it's not normal, it's how your family is dealing with all of the learnings that life is throwing your way, and it's somebody said, life wasn't meant to be easy, and I don't like that expression, because coming from the optimist world,
it doesn't have to be hard.
it doesn't have to be hard,
Mm-hmm.
or we don't have to define it as hard. You know, we can define it as an experience that we had to go through in order to get to the other side. And maybe it wasn't, great and pleasant at the time, but wow, look what we've achieved over here, and how proud we can be that we went through all of that. So
yeah,
maybe it's just the lens that we look through life and the perspective that we have. And I go to the dark place too. I mean, I go to the light place, but we all do, right? And I think that is the key to our humanity, is knowing, hey, everybody goes there, even the ones who are, self-proclaimed positivity people. Yeah, because without that, you have to have those, the yin and the yang, and the light and the shade, and all of those different aspects in order to really know who we are.
I hope you enjoyed our conversation today. As a thank you for being here, I'd like to offer you my glorious second act workbook and planner. It's a great tool to help you gain clarity on what it is you want next in your life and to create a plan to get you there. It's a totally free gift. The link is down below, so click the link, download your planner, and get started, taking action and creating a new and exciting second half to your life. I'm Joanne Kobike, your midlife coach. Stop by again for another episode of Modern Midlife. See you next time.